Welcome to Stormwatch by Gray Noise Intelligence. Each week, we drop the latest info on what's happening at Gray Noise and Census, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. We're back from our extended break, all rested and relaxed, and I think we've all forgotten how to podcast, so bear with us for this episode. And we're ready to dig into some serious cyber happenings. First, we're going to review CISA's Red Team report to see how a federal agency fared against their elite hacksaws in CISA. We're going to dive into the AT&T Snowflake breach that affects, well, pretty much everyone on Earth. As we review what both Census and Gray Noise have published recently, we're going to take a time to talk about the pending Distrust of Entrust certificates and see what the blast radius might look like from that in October. And of course, we'll cover the usual tags and Kev roundups. So, and I have some music to go for our initial opening question here, as I usually do. Hopefully, I don't think anyone's. Oh, where's I put it? No, there it is. See if we can figure out what the music is.
8675.
Yeah, so there's a reason for the numerical music and telephonic music. There's a telephonic theme to the stuff today. I gotta make it a little louder. Sorry about that, guys. So we have a cool question today. It's great to see everybody back. We missed you. Well, and Sift took over for a day, which is good, I guess. I don't know if that's great or not. I think our Overwatch might, replace me with Sift, but we'll see. I don't know. But let's start off with a hello to Himija. How you doing, Himija?
I'm amazing.
You are? Hey, wow, nice.
I thought she was just gonna wave.
She could have just waved. Because we do. Yeah, no. Well, there is a podcast portion of this, so we kind of have to do that. The question I have for y'all today, since we do have a AT&T thing going on, so I picked a telephony theme for it. What is the most interesting or odd wrong number, call, or text that you've ever received?
So I don't get these very often, but the one that sticks out is actually a recurring theme where somebody thinks my name is Gordon and that I'm a real estate agent. So they don't happen as much anymore, but people come to me asking for help buying a house, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, that's not in my skill set, but it could be.
I mean, wow. You already got a client base.
Yeah, seriously.
My alter ego, Gordon, the real estate agent.
I mean, it beats Glenn's stripper name, so that's all right.
Oh my!
Yeah, we're just coming out hot today. It's all right. Emily, it's good to see you as well, or should I say, Dr. Venkman?
Oh no! Hi.
It's
something to be here.
Yeah, it's definitely something today.
The attitude today.
Yeah, guys. It's a day, guys. So if you all might just want to podcast this instead of live, it's fine. We understand.
Or you can encourage us in the comments with.
We really do need some bright, shiny things. It would be great if there were some happy things you could post, like cat pictures or something. Anyway, what is the most interesting or odd wrong text or call you've had, Emily?
So I don't get a ton of wrong texts or calls, but my name is very prosaic, and I have an email address that is my name. And there are several other Emily Austins in the world who are very interesting individuals. And one of them is a broadcaster on a television news network. Let's just say with diametrically opposing views to mine. And so she has fans who email her and think they're emailing her, but they're emailing me. And so that's been interesting.
You should respond.
Conspiracy theories, all kinds of things. It's wild. And I just kind of let them roll in. So.
All right. Wow. I'd actually love to see some of those emails, actually, because I can only imagine what they're sending to that person.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Glenn, first of all, good. And your AC is fixed. You don't have any more storms coming your way. Everything's all good, right?
After 31 days, I got AC back. I was too far north for the hurricane, so I have power. Seemingly things are good at the moment, so we'll take it.
But before we do yours, this is a pretty hot take. Hot dogs are just sandwiches.
Oh no, let's not. Oh
yeah, it's pretty hot take.
Tacos are sandwich. There's a whole yeah.
So same for you. Odd text call. Interesting odd.
I'm gonna go the email route. So there is my iCloud or my me address
Uh-huh.
is very easy to sort out, and I don't use it. I only got it because everyone gets one when you sign up, but I don't use it. And so the only emails in there are either the junk, whatever, or there was this one family or group of friends, this was a couple of years ago, who over the period of time I learned they live in Australia. It's a group of like 6 or 8 older couple friends, and they were planning a vacation. And as I'm reading through these emails, you could tell like they're looking for confirmation from all of these folks except for the Glenn, who was never responding. And I was ignoring it for a while. And actually, like they went on some trips together. They would share photos, so like I would see photos of these people. And so over the period of a year or two, I was like, oh, these people are pretty fun. Like that's a good goal to have, like older travel friend group, whatever. But then finally, when it got to where they were looking for confirmation for something from this Glenn person, I finally had to respond and say, it appears that you really need to know something from this Glenn guy, and I am not the right Glenn, but I've enjoyed the photos over the years.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Because
That's
they needed this
wild.
response. But for years, it was kind of a nice little, like, I'd just pop in and see, like, what are they up to? Like, alter ego style.
I've had the same
Oh.
thing happen to me, like where I get pulled into like party invites or things. People think they're emailing someone else. There are several in various locations around the United States and England, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, wow, these are your family photos. I got one
There-
woman's like bank statements,
Oh,
like legitimate bank, and I was like, this seems bad.
there was one really cool invite to a rooftop party in Manhattan that I was like, what if I just went?
You could have that one. So I got one for a bachelorette party one time, and I was like,
Ooh.
this is absolutely not my thing, but also like I kind of want to just go and crash.
Maybe the doctor would show up to the bachelorette party,
You never know.
alter ego style.
I never know.
Wow. They didn't
Anyway.
get upset that you've been eavesdropping for ever? Like,
They actually never responded.
yeah, I was gonna say it's yeah.
I may have killed them. That may have been.
Yeah.
Maybe Glenn had been missing for years and no one knew it. I don't know.
Oh, this took a dark turn.
Wow.
Oh,
It's
Are
gonna
you
get
on like a Dateline episode somewhere?
it's gonna get darker. It's gonna get darker. Maybe I
Once
don't
the
know.
security, everything gets darker.
This is true. So none of this will be possible, especially today, because Ashley's the only one sane right now. Is our from Overwatch, Ashley. Ashley, thanks for getting us to here today, because I don't know if we would have done it if you weren't around. And what is okay? Caller ID and cell phone ruined the good prank. Wrong number calls. Did y'all ever watch Crank Yankers? Those were funny. She doesn't have a good answer to this. Boo.
I remember crank yankers. It stressed me out. I can't deal with. I don't like pranks. I shouldn't have said that, but I
It's
don't
okay.
like pranks. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Secondhand embarrassment.
So candid camera
But
would not be a
also-
good thing for you.
What's that?
Candid camera wouldn't be a good thing for you.
Or what would you do? Whatever that show was. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm going to first complain about something that isn't a odd wrong thing to me, but I am the only one at Gray Noise left out of the phishing email and text messages that we get to like get gift cards for CEO or whatever. Even new employees get them, and I don't get them, and I feel very left out.
You know, you could just
It
go
is
buy some
amazing.
gift cards if it makes you feel better.
It is amazing how fast. So Ash, our CEO, started March officially. I think March, February,
March,
February,
yeah.
about Valentine's Day.
At some
I
point
mean,
in 2024, yeah.
And I mean, and it was mere days before the new employees that were joining were already getting the, hey, this is Ash. I need something right away. Man,
Yeah,
they're on
it's
it.
insane.
I wish we
So
could be that on top of things.
So that's my complaint. I just had to get that off my chest. Because I say it every time that someone shows that they're special and I'm not. So, or I guess, I mean, I don't get it. So maybe I'm the special one. I don't know. That's maybe the positive way of looking at it.
Maybe it's you. Maybe they're coming from you and you just outed yourself.
So a couple years ago, got an errant text message to my 207 number, the main number. There's only one area code in Maine for everyone that doesn't know that. And it was about like a golf thing. Like there went, and I just ignored that one. And then the next year, I got another errant message to it. I'm probably like one digit off, and the person fat fingered it, and they just did it again. And the one was about like, do you want to hit the greens at blah 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 this place? And it was a Maine thing, so it was definitely someone in Maine, or at least like in the region here. And I didn't do that. And then the next year, same like so. I don't know why it's only once a year because it only happens once a year. The next year like, again, and I'm like, this is odd, and I didn't want to ignore it. And I was in a really bad mood the day, so I said no. Dave's kind of a jerk because Dave's a common name, and I figured that person might know
What?
there's a Dave.
Wow.
and that person then decided to respond like with why Dave actually is a jerk, and we probably shouldn't. And the reason why I came up again, so the two reasons: one, we're covering AT&T today, and this thing, I just got another thing from that person this week. And I was nice and didn't respond to it that one there,
Wow,
but I
that's
went really dark.
amazing.
I went really dark on that one, and I got lucky that Dave was an actual person that they knew.
So you had no idea that like Dave was a shot in the dark. Just
It's a common name. It's a really, really common name up
Sure.
there. So
I guess you could do the same with
Wow.
Bob. Also,
Yeah.
I just noted
Good.
Hemage's earrings. Like,
Oh,
holy
I
moly!
still have my
wow.
earrings.
Those are so cool.
They are amazing.
Is this the first time you've worn those?
I wore them on my debut, if you will. But I decided to
man,
whip them
and no
back
one
out for
noticed?
our re-debut after your
This is
break.
true. This is true.
Right. Anyway, cool.
All right, we're gonna get going here because you didn't come here to hear us talk about Bob. I'm in jail. I need an Amazon gift card to make. Thank you, Todd. Thank you. I really appreciate
I mean,
that.
the first part of that is highly believable.
Actually, yeah, that's very true. We're going to get to covering things, and we're going to try to cover things well. But before we do that, please like and mash and subscribe, all of the things out there. It really does help. Ashley would really appreciate it because that's how we actually can measure things better than the ways that we do in some of the other ways. And our cyber side chat starts with I'm going to just tell, I think this was an awesome thing CISA did. I think that the exercise itself was awesome. I also think that the transparency in the reporting that they did was awesome. I don't care that the federal agency had issues because every organization has issues. So this is great. I just want to preface this with, this is amazing. Go CISA. You continue to do great work. Except when you support weird CVE things that go out there, but we can have a whole other discussion about that. So in early 2003, the CISA, I'm going to say CISA conducted Silent Shield Red Team assessment against an unknown federal civilian executive branch. We might speculate, I think, during this episode. During that assessment, the Red Team first performs a no-notice long-term simulation of nation-state cyber ops. They mimic the techniques, tradecraft, and behaviors of sophisticated threat actors and measures the potential dwell time actors have on a network. They provide a realistic assessment of the organization's security posture, and then they work directly with the organization's network defenders, admins, and other tech staff to address the strengths and weaknesses found. So this was really great. The key findings are, first, the Red Team gained initial access by exploiting an unpatched vulnerability and through phishing. Yay. Of course they did. Discovered unsecured admin credentials allowing full domain compromise. Yay. Pivoted to external partner organizations due to trust relationships. Yay. Remained undetected through first phase of assessment. Yay. And organization only understood the full extent of compromise by analyzing all data sources. Oops. What I do there wasn't. The lessons learned were that there were insufficient controls to prevent and detect malicious activity. There were ineffective collection, retention, and analysis of logs. Bureaucratic processes and decentralized teams hindered network defenders. Known bad detection approach hampered identifying alternate TTPs. Over-reliance on specific IOCs rather than behavior-based detection. And the recommendations were to do defense in depth, implement robust network segment. I'm not going to read it. Like the key recommendations were like literally all the basics that we all say all the time, and we have them for 20 years. Okay, having I think that's all for that one. Yeah. So I've already kind of I have said what I think about this particular one, but I thought we might want to have a bit of discussion because I think I might be the only one that thinks this was a great thing.
No, I agree. That's exactly
Okay.
what I was gonna say. I mean, obviously the findings are a little bit, I don't know that I would have expected anything different, especially like the lack of logging makes me a little bit very, very, very sad. But like I wish we could have seen this earlier, if anything. Like this is really awesome work.
Yeah, so I did have so I think it's a good thing. I think it's awesome that they're doing proactive exercises. It's awesome that they're being transparent. It's awesome that, that not just transparent that they do it, but like, here's what we learned about ourselves, or at least, this agency, blah, blah, blah. Like, all that's good because it is, as you said, no one is doing this well. Like that, no matter how hard you try, it's just too hard. It's too complex. However, like my first question, and this comes from the days of like being on the other side of this, is like, I really want to know if the initial pen test, like the initial access, was from internal or external. Meaning, there's so many pen tests where folks like say, "Here's a laptop, and there's the port on the wall. Like plug in there and start." Where they basically already start on the inside. And that's really unfair, depending on your goals. That I couldn't actually figure out if that was the case in this based on the report. So that's just a question I have. It doesn't really matter, except it kind of changes the severity of the incident.
So
Um,
to my knowledge, they did start outside because they basically exploited a CVE.
yeah, but
I also read it like based on just the introduction and talking about how they did this no notice long term simulation. That to me reads like
Yeah,
an
same,
external pen test.
same.
I
okay,
could be wrong,
yeah,
but that's how it reads to me.
yeah, I can see that because it does. It was an RCE, a CVE. The CVE was from October of 22. I think this started in Jan or the engagement started early of 23, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And what I couldn't quite match up because I was really kind of curious. I was kind of fact checking. What I was also confused on was it says something like they used the CVE and then 2 weeks later it was added to, I'm assuming Metasploit, but it says like a popular open source uh, exploitation software program. And so like that matches up to be like March, I think. So anyway, like the dates get off. So then I'm also wondering, like, did they have this CVE prior? You know what I mean? Like if or sorry, did they have the POC for the CVE early? So just some pedantic questions on that. Again, it doesn't really matter because it was a known vuln. It's not like they launched an O day. The thing should have been patched. It wasn't. And then the phishing comes in, which the phishing may be more damning than the actual CVE. Man, I can't talk today. The actual POC. So just a couple things, but I really do love that they put out such a thorough report. It has the timeline in it. It talks about where it's very clear lessons learned, like that's straight out of the report. So, and it's no surprise to me that the logging, no organizations today are still very overwhelmed, right? So if they are logging, a lot of times it's local, so that can be altered, or they're logging to a central repository and not reviewing it. So then it doesn't really matter, it just goes into the black hole. Or they, you know, the best, most mature is they log it, they review it, they look for indicators. So the dwell time, I think, overall is the most concerning part of this engagement, which was the 5 months, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me kind of in the lessons learned piece is this over reliance on known bad detections. Um, that I know that's like a small piece of this, but talking about logging and thinking about detection logic, pattern matching is kind of a fundamental way to start, detecting bad things, right? Like that's a straightforward thing you can do. That's kind of the ground layer. But that's going to get you 90% of the way there, maybe 95% of the way there. It's not going to get you closer to that 100%, right? Like that's where you have to have something that's a little bit more intelligent. And let me be really clear, I'm not going to like I feel like I'm about to start sounding like I'm going to advocate for like AI and all of this other type of stuff. But I've been in situations in the past where we had these really robust rule-based systems that did great for the first, again, like 85 to 90%. But then we got bit by some of the things where even very basic ML techniques would have helped us get a little bit further down that sort of like user behavior analytics pipeline. And that is the thing. And I got significant pushback about that when suggesting that at the org where I was and was kind of like bringing this up, right? The fact that those rules don't always scale, the detection logic doesn't always scale. And so I just think that's an interesting problem. Like it's still a problem. It's still a thing that we're contending with. And granted, again, the rules, the pattern matching, that's going to get you the bulk of the way there in most situations. But this again was simulating, nation state level activity. And if that's a concern for you or your organization, I think you can't discount the importance of that last mile, that last bit. And investing in some ways to sort of more intelligently detect some of these types of things, whether it's, again, behavior analytics, like who's logging on at 3 a.m. local time when that's never what they do, IP velocity checks,
Impossible travel.
Yeah, those types of things. Yeah, so that kind of stood out to me a little bit.
So what you're highlighting, Emily, is actually something that we deal with quite often for our data sets with our sensors online. Of course, we see over and over, CVE comes out, big bad thing. POC comes out, then shortly afterwards, people are just throwing it wherever they can. And so for that, 90%, it's a 1-to-1 match to the first
Right.
public POC, including like bad copy paste or they forgot to replace a variable. Like it's funny.
I love
So
those.
and Ron has several blog posts now where he's like enjoying not having to create the POCs. He's like, I'll just wait for you to come to me. But so we have that, and that that catches a lot of who's trying to do the things. But then for the the B list, the A list attackers, you have to do some extra work, and that's where we like invested in Sift and some other things. Like I won't make this a sales thing right now, but that's where we've really seen a lot of success is making the matching a little fuzzy, a little blurry, so that you can catch. Now that's going to cause false positives, and you're going to have to do some human labor. But this is our jobs, right? And actually, later in the show today, we have a blog post that actually, not on purpose, is a highlight of just that, the D-Link thing. But yeah, it's absolutely true to the first 90% are going to be 1-to-1, essentially. And then the last 10% are the ones that are actually trying and changing and doing the more advanced things. And those are the ones you have to worry about, of course.
Yeah. Well, and this also kind of ties into one of the other pieces that they address, which is, establishing baselines. And I feel like everywhere I've been in a blue team capacity, that's kind of always been the like standard thing. Like that is goal one. You cannot defend anything if you don't know what normal looks like. And I think too often we get tricked into, or not, but like we try to like put the cart before the horse, right? We start trying to build things and figure things out when really what we need to be doing is just observing and kind of figuring out, okay, what is normal on my network? What do I expect to see in my environment? Because that's going to help make those additional, like that's how you end up, you build a model that can kind of detect those things a little bit better than maybe a static rule could. But I think I'm happy that they highlighted that because I think that's so important. And it's such a foundational piece of defense that I suspect a lot of orgs maybe don't quite get it right. And it's worth investing time into understanding sort of the baseline of what is normal on your network in your environment.
The interesting thing about the baseline is you have to do a little pre-work before you do the baselining, because if you baseline a compromised environment, then everything looks fine. We've
Well,
seen
sure.
we've
And
seen
then
that
also,
before too.
like
But
there's the time amount too, right? Like I've been in
yeah,
places where they're like, well, we can only afford to save logs for like 14 days. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Run that by me again? Do you mean like we can put them in like cold storage? Like, no, they get wiped after 14 days. And you're like, wait, how am I supposed to, how does this help me at all? It doesn't, right? And so like being able to look back over that long period of time and kind of figure out, in addition to like, don't just look at the compromised time period. You've got to be doing this when things are okay. You have to do this like before you're sitting down to work through an incident.
So at the risk of having the show longer than we really want it to be, there's a question I did not prep you for associated with this, and it doesn't negate my positive thing because I do think this was a good thing on here. But this unnamed agency, and maybe we won't speculate on who it was. They're a federal agency. They have a CISO because that's a thing. Like those are requirements. And for the past 3 years, at least under this administration, there have been reporting requirements that you got to meet all sorts of grades and you got to check all sorts of boxes. What was this agency? How did this? I mean, there was a lot of problems that CISA found. So how did this happen?
I have a theory. So I've been thinking about this as I read over the report again. I can totally see how, at an individual level, it might have seemed like they had the tools in place, right? It wasn't like a binary, like they didn't have anything, right? Like they had logging, but it got moved to cold storage after 30 days. They had like special provisioned service account roles, but like they weren't like used in every single case. They had an IDM, but not all of the defenders were registered or knew how to use the IDM. Like kind of all these little things where it's like they were like almost there, but they're like
The boxes were
not
checked.
implemented. Exactly. Boxes were checked, laundry list was checked, but it was not ever like stress tested against what an actual organization's needs would be. And I can see how, like, bird's eye view, you're like, or when you're like working, you're like, okay, yeah, I've got all my tools, like everything's churning, logs are churning. But then, yeah, in practice, it doesn't actually get you where you need to go.
Like maybe they've been trying to hire for 7 months, right? And there's always more to the story.
That was an
And
amazing
this,
answer, Hemingway. So I'm sorry, but that was an amazing answer. That was absolutely amazing. Go ahead, Emily. Sorry.
oh no, I was just going to say, I think this also kind of highlights the gap between compliance and policy and sort of where the rubber meets the road. And also why I think it's really important to actually have pen tests. And I know a lot there are regulations and requirements that do or regulations that do require you to have a pen test as part of your audit, your certification, et cetera. Unfortunately, I think too many people probably phone those in a little bit. Like they maybe don't do what they should there. But I think that's at least a step in trying to kind of close that gap, because I think Hemage is exactly right. It's like
Yeah.
you can check all the boxes on paper and still be in a situation where you're not really equipped to deal with an incident like this. And so like my question is like, how do we make those two closer together? How do we close the gap between like I've checked all the boxes on the paper and I actually have a robust security posture.
Yeah. So maybe the whole third party questionnaire racket needs to be tossed
Mhm.
out because you can check those boxes and it's not going to matter.
Yeah. There is one there was one other lesson learned that I don't think we touched on, which was like uh essentially like bureaucratic issues, red tape. And that's something that, you just have to do the tabletops. You have to do the practice to understand, who's involved in what and where and how we're going to make these decisions before you're in the heat of battle. So, that's something that on some hands is a lot harder, but on the other hand is maybe a little easier, which I just implied that you have 3 hands. When I said that, I realized. But the bureaucratic issue, that's something where again, do some practice, spend some time, think through roles and responsibilities during these high pressure situations so that you can highlight that, because ideally you're not truly making decisions in the heat of the moment. The decisions and the goals and stuff have been outlined prior, and then you're following a plan, and that definitely lowers everyone's personal risk and also speeds up, getting through this thing. And then you do a retro and improve from it.
Cool. So we are going to go to talk about another terrible topic then. Probably a bunch of boxes were checked here, especially on third party forms. Uh, Apologies for ruining the cool graphic, but there's a Vimeo link on here that everyone should go to as a result of what you're about to hear. This is a link to Vimeo about a documentary about a series of advertisements that were made back in the 90s by a certain large global telecommunications organization. And I'm going to really quickly, hopefully not break everyone's ears, because
Have you ever renewed your driver's license? At a cash machine?
Nice picture.
You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
all right, so we're gonna take that off there because it goes on for a while. So you can find that on YouTube, where they have some snippets in the documentary that I put on there. For folks that aren't familiar with that, there was a whole series of adverts. Glenn, I think I might have asked you to describe this one to folks, since we are a podcast and we do actually have to describe things.
So this looks like a print image. The text says, "Have you ever sent a postcard you didn't have to mail?" And then in big block letters, "You will." It has a woman writing on the old style of was that Palm Pilot, right?
Look,
Is that
it
what
looks like it looks like a Palm Pilot to me. Yeah.
Yeah, the Palm Pilot with the stylus, like all the rage, which I mean, it was pretty cool at the time. A little hint of an international setting behind them, so I'm assuming this person's a business traveler writing a note that is going to be electronically sent. And do you want me to read the small font?
Nah, I think that's
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so
They basically paint a little narrative about that, and what was really, so I appreciate that, Glenn. And one reason why, like, I do encourage folks to go look at this, is the creative team behind this got a lot right. They actually predicted the Apple Watch before it was an Apple Watch, like before, like, do you be making phone calls on your, like, they got a lot right. Why they got a lot right is also part of the documentary. I really
remember when AT&T was the sole provider for the iPhone the first several years?
wow, it's true. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. That's right. I did switch to AT&T for that, like, first two gens of iPhone, then
Mm-hmm.
switch back to like even worse Verizon. Anyway, so but the other reason why the document, and so they got a lot right. Like, they predicted so much about, like, the future that we have right now. It's really scary, and I'll read the second one for folks that are. So this is a similar print. The one was like an orange marbled background. This is like a greenish marbled or patterned background that's out there. There's a gray snowflake on as the central thing versus the mosque that Glenn was saying before. And so the intro headline for this one is, "Have you ever seen a global multinational mishandle the call data records of millions of hapless customers?" It's crazy. I mean, isn't this crazy? And then, like, I will read the small text because, like, I think it's important. So they predicted that one day irresponsible data analysts who want Snowflake on their resumes will needlessly move CDRs to the cloud, and Snowflake's equally irresponsible governance policies will fail to enforce multi-factor authentication, allowing attackers to conduct one of the biggest supply chain breaches in history. They nailed this, guys. Like, I am just so amazed at.
It's like the year is 1994.
Yeah, like they were spot on. If only they could have read their own marketing material. I mean, it's just,
So
whew,
wrong.
oh boy. So for folks that have been, like, buried on head in the sand or too warm to look at news, AT&T announced a massive data breach affecting nearly all of its wireless customers. I love the double quotes. The breach occurred between April 14th and April 25th of this year, when hackers illegally accessed exfiltrated customer data and exfiltrated from their workspace on a third-party cloud platform, which was later to be confirmed to be Snowflake. The records, so call data records for both cell and text messages from May 1st through 2022 through October 31st, 2022, and some from January 2nd, 2023. So all those CDRs, which is basically like all the like, if you ever heard from metadata that people use all the time to talk about, like, privacy and things like that, that's all the metadata of all the things that are in there. Call and text metadata, including call durations and frequency of interactions, and cell site identification numbers for some records, which means they kind of know where at least the AT&T customer was for those things, because CDRs are usually that they may not have the information for where the other person was. This breach is part of a larger cybersecurity incident involving Snowflake, which we are going to cover on a future episode. A cloud data platform used by many companies for data analysis. I can do this. This attack has affected multiple Snowflake customers, and I'm not going to name those folks because it's not their fault. Attackers, well, it may be some of their fault in some cases. I don't know. Attackers exploited a lack of multi-factor authentication in some Snowflake customer accounts, using stolen credentials to gain unauthorized access. And then there were malware infections in Snowflake systems, reportedly going all the way back to 2020 as a result of this, with some stolen credentials remaining for years. They identified the group as UNC 5537 by Mandiant. It's a financially motivated group. And mind-bogglingly, and I would really have loved to have been in the room when they were staring at whatever screen they were staring at for this. AT&T reportedly paid a hacker affiliated with the Shiny Hunters group over $300,000 in Bitcoin to delete the stolen data and provide video evidence of its deletion. Because yeah, Pinky Swear did it. You saw me. I hit the delete button. There you go. However, there are concerns that other entities may, yeah, a little bit. So the breach has affected a vast number of AT&T's 42 million US wireless customers, 128 million connected devices. They're notifying their affected customers, and they've taken steps to close off the illegal access point. We're going to talk a minute about how it literally has, I said it at the beginning, but it's affected the planet. Like, it's not just AT&T customers. And I love this quote by Chris Krebs, the former director of CISA. AT&T received national security exception from DOJ under the SEC reporting requirements. First such exception that I am aware of, and I would have loved to have heard the intonations as Mr. Krebs said that. Oh boy, where do we start with? Who wants to go first? Because this is a target-rich environment. Who wants to go first? Emily, come on.
Yeah, I'm looking at Emily. Emily's
Wait, why are you
got
looking
steam
at
coming
me?
out.
No, I don't even know where to start, honestly. Like, this is kind of remarkably terrible. And I feel like, well, hopefully no one will say this, but I remember there was a time when people would be like, well, it's just metadata. It's not a big deal. It's fine. Remember the Patriot Act and Section 215? And everyone was like, oh, it's just metadata. Well, the thing about that is, though, that paints you a perfectly clear picture of someone's interactions and lifestyle and all kinds of things that they might not want made public, whether it's health issues, whether it's personal relationship things. It doesn't really matter. You don't need to know the contents of the call or the text message to know that there is something going on. And I think of this as I did with that kind of previous sort of discussion when this came up of, what if someone has, health issues that they don't particularly want someone to know about. I think about trans folks. I think about folks in the LGBTQ community, like, who may not be out, who may not want those things known, but they might be associated now in call logs with these types of organizations. And I mean, there are an endless amount of scenarios where you could imagine that this could go very, very bad. And so that's kind of that's where my mind first goes with this, right? Like, yes, obviously it's a huge failure of security. Like, there are lots of things we could talk about here, but my thought is, wow, this really sucks for folks who have things that they don't want made public. And that's all of us in some ways, right?
Yeah, well, and just to emphasize that all of us, so like, this is call data records. It's the incoming phone numbers as well as whoever that people at AT&T customers were reaching out to from there, which means, and I mean, who doesn't talk to someone or text someone that's on AT&T versus that? And like, this is yes, it's a US based company, but it's this is 2022. Like, everyone's talking everywhere all the time and everything. And to just layer on to what Emily was saying.
Did
so
you just
what?
2022?
The records are from 2022.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, the records are the records. And so they there it was modern times. There's a lot of numbers flying everywhere for those particular things. So there's two things just to add to make Emily's observation even more terrible. One is that, like, your phone number is in ad tech databases everywhere, to the skeeziest of ad tech databases, and it's labeled with all the other things that you have, and it's really cheap to get that information. Like, it's really cheap. So actually knowing who those folks are with those digits is not hard. So beyond what Emily was saying and some of the things there, like, it's you'll know, like, someone could piece together, because this data is going to be out there if it isn't already, and you're going to be able to piece together who's having an affair with who, all the medical things that Emily was saying, and a whole lot more. And I realized that the reason for the special the special dispensation that they got from the government is that odds are this was done to find something related to government stuff in that particular time period. So you steal the whole thing to not reveal what that one little thing you're going after is. But after you do that, and after the government tries to figure out what might have been disclosed because of that, which is why it took so long to get everything out. Now that data is going to be out there, and it's going to cause a whole mess of problems. This will have huge ramifications, like going forward. All because a bunch of people said, I want to get Snowflake on my resume so I can get a higher paying job somewhere else, and I'm not going to bother with authentication because who cares? Who about safe authentication? It's just terrible.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the point, or part of the takeaway is not so yes, this is terrible. It's metadata, data about data. You can associate many different, like, far-reaching things to each other, especially at a time when in the US, like, a lot of rights are under attack, etc.
I feel a
There's
butt
also
coming.
the what's that?
I feel a butt coming.
No, no, but
Okay.
um the other, like, so this is all bad. Then we zoom out and say all of this really bad is not just because of a sophisticated nation state attacker, a 0 day and a unknown um, software, like some insane thing where 14 things had to go completely one direction only for this to happen. We're talking lack of multi-factor authentication, um, which we have covered in great detail over the past several,
Criminal lack of MFA, in my opinion, but okay.
like, and this we're just talking about Snowflake here. I mean, AT&T, this is related to Snowflake. Snowflake is just still spiraling out of control with that breach. Like, I don't know how they exist still. But yeah, like, it drives me. I just always like to point out whenever we're talking about, like, when a big bad thing happens and it's because of, a big bad sophisticated reason, and when a big bad thing happens because of basically sheer negligence. And that's what this is. This is negligence. It should be criminal. It Yeah. And all the people that signed up for that 20% off coupon by giving their phone number now will have more affiliations with different ad tech databases, and it keeps going. And not even to
Tabulated.
think about the
Yeah.
national security stuff,
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, there's not much. I mean, like that's they got whatever they wanted from it on that one there.
mhm.
But so we covered this because we wanted to cover it. We had the show meeting and we're like we need to cover this, and we're all acting. I mean, okay, we're not all acting, but we all appear to be genuinely surprised by this and angry about this. And to Patrick, friend of the show, Patrick, what actually a previous guest on show, Patrick, too, when I was in here, it's true.
Alumni.
Is anyone really surprised by all this? So here we're all indignant. I'm upset. I went all over them on the non-Twitters, and like, but why? Like, why?
Okay, so
I'm very cross. That's what's gonna that's
maybe unpopular opinion. Am I surprised? Yes, because I I guess I still want to believe that organizations as large as AT&T are making not terrible decisions to not protect their data, as egregious as this is, right? Like, am I surprised that this happened? No, because we're all in trouble. Am I surprised that, they didn't have multi-factor on a thing? Yeah, I'm gonna say yes because I expect and hope better, right? Like, it shouldn't be.
I
Now,
think
as a cybersecurity professional, I guess, am I surprised? No, nothing surprises you anymore. But
as a cybersecurity professional, I'm not surprised either. But kind of like as a person who uses technology, and I think a lot of my peers share this, we kind of expect email to get hacked, especially
yeah,
like after the events of past elections. But I think it still comes as like I don't know. I don't think people expect their personal text to get hacked, even though like yes, everything if you store data, it can be breached, but like still, I don't think people expect their phone calls and texts to be leaked on this big of a scale,
downloadable on the
outside
internet
of
on the
court
yeah, yeah. Oh, and
proceedings. So
And a point that we were talking about pre-show was, so if people think that like, oh, I have iPhone, my friends have iPhone, we use iMessage, so that would be excluded from the logs. Not necessarily true, because it rolls back to SMS. So if someone has a bad signal or whatever, and it only takes one completion of a text to associate you, right? So
Please stop using SMS for
yeah, like,
anything that's even please stop using anything that could roll to SMS. Signal exists. Use it, please. I am astounded at the number of people who continue to like. I have friends who will like pull me into a group text and I'm like, I'm not saying anything to you. Do you want me to block your number? Like, don't use SMS. Stop it. Sorry. This is just like I feel really strongly about this because like it's just there are so many better solutions than SMS at this point. That's a whole other. Sorry, Glenn.
so if you want to talk to Emily, use Messenger. Is that what I'm hearing?
Messenger pigeon.
Dead
Am
to
I
me.
right?
Or
Yes.
or that email of the television show host that
Yeah.
because that'll
Yeah,
get you it too. Yeah.
exactly.
I'm one, but to just extend what you said, on one pot, I mean, okay, it still means that you're using the native messaging apps and not using Signal, like someone has said, and I'm now afraid of having my head cut off because I'm going to say this. At least with the new upgrade to iMessage on Mac 15, Mac OS 15, and iOS 18, because I'm running both of those. The group text chat with my family that we do, is now at least now my one kid who is a Android user is no longer just defaults to SMS for that, at least. And now everything is all the green bubbles and it's all great. Mostly because I can't get anyone to use Signal. So and you or using another app of any kind to do that kind of work. And I'm not going to use all the other weird apps that you could use either. So
WhatsApp.
oh yeah,
this is
and hold on, Todd's got a good retort for Emily. So, but Signal doesn't integrate my car's infotainment.
Sure.
Haha.
No, that's a real thing. Like there is a real barrier to getting folks who maybe aren't super enthusiastic about technology switched into using something that's a little bit better. And then the suggestion is WhatsApp. It's like, well,
WhatsApp is not any better.
Yeah.
Than
I would. Well, okay. We can go into
Well,
a religious argument on that.
your
I mean,
flavor.
better again.
We can make
Yeah.
like a tier chart of all of
Yes.
these
Yeah.
this episode.
The waterfall of encryption, but yeah.
Wow. So yeah, so just be prepared. And so I guess my other thing is like AT&T is going to be giving breach notices to all their customers, and we are all breached.
My Ticketmaster notice.
But we're all breached. I got a Ticketmaster notice. I didn't read. I don't know why, because like I don't go anywhere, but I must have at some point like gone to something because I got one. I was just surprised I got one.
You probably got like Guns N' Roses tickets once or something.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. You caught me, Glenn. But like we're not like this story's out there, and every story, and one reason why we wanted to cover it is to just get this out there. Is like it isn't just AT&T customers. Like we all are breached, and no one's like the AT&T is not going to get smacked for it. Nothing's going to happen to them. There's going to be no repercussions, and this really sucks. It really sucks.
How many people are affected that can't be notified because they escape the container of AT&T customer data set?
Yeah, so my conservative guess is 1 billion.
Okay. Sorry, I just wasn't expecting the B word there, but no, I don't think I disagree. I just wasn't expecting it.
Because some of the AT&T is businesses and government, and there's a lot of interactions with businesses and government by a lot of individuals globally. This is a global breach, and it's terrible. And it's even worse for me because we were gonna switch to it because like we go up to like the down east part of Maine a lot, and up there, and Verizon has no coverage up there. So like because you have to we bring radios instead, so we could.
That's a feature, not a bug.
It is, I used to think of it that way, but like but now like we just bring radios instead of switching to AT&T. But it's still like there's still places where you can only use this thing too. So anyway, all right, we're gonna get off of this topic because we beat it to death, and we're gonna talk about something else that's terrible too. Well, not this one first. Glenn, would you like to explain one of our cool blog posts that slipped through while we were not doing Stormwatch for 2 weeks?
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was hinting at earlier when we were talking about the 90%, 10% role matching, but super awesome blog from Remy on the team where essentially we started noticing, well, first of all, there's a batch of dealing crowders that are end of life, so that's cool. And which is, I mean, things get end of life, we understand, but they're still in use. There's
D-Link
basic
DIR 859, since people do listen and not just read. So
Thank you. Good point. Um, but yeah, so basically it's forever bones, and they're really bad information disclosure. And we started seeing what grabbed our attention is CIF started surfacing variants of the known exploits for this, and it turns out there was a bit more to it than was initially known. So basically, Remy wrote about it, has a lot of technical information in it. Go check it out. You can get some file paths and stuff that are being targeted, but it it just, I don't know. The end of life thing is such a
yeah,
difficult topic in security that this highlights another need for paying attention to your home and small business technologies.
but since no one that listens to this podcast or watches this video thing would own stuff that's end of life, and they're very responsible. Make sure you tell your friends who aren't, and your family
Should we
members who
start
aren't.
actually having to mail letters for when you own something that's being end of life? Like, shouldn't maybe
No, because
how would grandma know?
do you really want D-Link
How would
to
little
have
Susie
to
know when she
maintain?
can't get into her home?
Do you want D-Link to have to maintain contact information for humans?
They can just get it from AT&T.
Oh, oh. All right, we're gonna talk about a better, well, not better, a different thing, and not end of life. Well, actually, this is kind of an end of life story in a way too. Wow, this is not great. By his time. And this is like Himage. It was like, we have to talk about this, and we do, because Census has an amazing. The research team did a phenomenal job on this. It's got lots of juicy, crunchy data and lots of great information, and tells a really good narrative. So please, definitely check this out. It's about the removal of Entrust from Chrome's root store, and how that is going to affect the internet. And I chose the words blast radius on purpose because this ain't great. Image. Could you walk us through like some of what's in this article?
Yeah. So TLDR, a couple weeks ago, I think towards the end of June, Google basically revoked trust in an ironically named certificate authority, and trust. Basically said all of the certificates issued by, they have like 9 so like root CAs that are associated with them, that those certs will be untrusted by default after Halloween this year. And this post is amazing because Census has one of the, I think we have one of the best perspectives on source data. We collect a lot of information about it. And so one of our researchers did a really cool deep dive on like who is using and trusts, what are the leaf domains here, what are the industries, what are the organizations, um, and kind of going into what a big kind of like storytelling of like how we got here, right? Because this is a big deal. It's not very common that this happens, especially because certificate authorities are kind of these like, it's a lot of like public trust, and like and a lot of like, okay, we'll trust each other, we'll adhere to good guidelines. This wasn't like a one and done decision. There's been like a history of kind of not so great decisions by Entrust. And it's really interesting to go through that and then look at, what does this look like? They're very heavily used in the financial services industry, which is not great,
It
as
it
this
it
graph
it
shows.
it it's almost like TLS adds a lot of problems maybe. Huh,
Oh,
yeah,
We
it's
might have
weird,
I'm
it's
to
weird,
not taking the
fist
bait.
fight
I'm
about
not
it's
that.
weird,
doing it.
it's weird, isn't it? It's weird how TLS can be problematic at the same time people think it could be so awesome too. I just
I feel like Overwatch should be keeping track of all of the like bitter inner debates that we have, and then we should start every once in a while have a show that's just like one-on-one
Hey,
duels.
if someone can subtweet me in a talk they're doing, I can subtweet them in our own show. So, yeah.
The interesting thing, so I mean, we've taught for the last 10, 15, I don't even know. Time is weird. We've taught people for a while now. Like, if you go to a website, like, just look for the lock, right? Like, that's where the bar was
Oh
at
no,
one point.
please let's not. No.
Look for the lock. If there's a lock there, then go ahead and put in your information. So, to Himige's point, like, there's so much inherent trust on just having a green lock or whatever in
Well,
the bar.
they don't exist anymore, Glenn.
Those have been gone for a while.
Yeah,
What?
they've been gone out of browsers for, like, a while
No,
now.
it's there if you look.
No,
It's
no, it's
No,
not.
no,
No,
Chrome has
no,
done
actually,
away
it's
with
not.
the lock.
Sir, I
Yeah.
can look right now and see it says
No.
connection is secure. What are you talking about? All right, we'll take this offline. Anyway, the point is that you made me lose my point. What is
It
happening?
it's almost like TLS is confusing too on top of being
Oh,
problematic.
man. All right, now I'm on Team Emily.
The lock icon is a whole separate thing from TLS itself. We've done a bad
Okay.
job trying to teach people how to recognize like what is secure versus what is not. That's a whole separate like UX issue.
Where I
TLS
was trying to
itself,
go was around the idea of this organization has inherent trust to issue these certificates. And we have taught people for decades that these CAs are trustworthy. And now Google is just ripping. I mean, I'm not saying who's right or wrong, but this organization's been around since like 94 or something. And now they're like, no, you haven't maintained this status, or you haven't maintained the standards that are required for this, so it's being removed. And so my point is more around the idea of these decades of inherent trust being built, and now we're pivoting a bit to say, well, actually, you didn't maintain it, which is good, right? But I think it's going to be confusing to folks who are on the sideline.
So,
But I just
Heminger,
made it way worse.
so Heminger, could you walk us, because like you were starting to walk us through like part of the blast radius thing and just the scope of these things, and I think you were talking, you were going to go into some of the industries, and we've got a chart up. So if you want to dig into that, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think I should clarify that, uh, currently issued certificates will still be trusted. It's just anything that is new from Entrust after Halloween will be untrusted by default. But, it is interesting kind of to see because like, Entrust is, they're in, like, the top 30, uh, CAs that have, like, the most issued certificates, who are trusted by Google. So that's quite a bit. And yeah, it was just interesting to me how many are kind of glommed at the top of this chart here, financial services and technology. Um, and there are a few names, if you go to the next slide, there were like a few companies that kind of stood out. Yeah, like Disney has a lot of these, I assume because they just have a lot of lease certificates. But yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see because this is like I don't know that this is a process that I mean, it is not a process that happens a lot. So I want to know what will happen within these companies. Like, will they get the memo and then switch, or will it happen? Will like things continue to chug along, and then Halloween, it's like, oh, what happened? Do we have to
Yeah,
switch over now?
because this was a boring story. Like, I haven't heard a whole lot of places make any hay out of this. Like that, I mean, we're doing it here, but and you did a great post on it. But we're also like that's like what four people read it, right? So for both of our things, and so I guess what's going to happen? So what will happen on November 1st, or maybe November 30th, or whatever? Like when the next cert gets renewed, and they do it with Entrust, and now someone gets that this is an untrusted site. What should I do? And then they just get told to click through it because that's what everyone does.
Right. I don't think it'll break anything. Um, but that itself worries me, right? Um, and going back to the padlock thing, like I don't think this will change user behavior, to be honest, but I'm really curious to see what the response will be, and how well we adhere to Google's decision, right? Because they're a big authority in the space, but how well do people actually follow the missive?
Yeah. So and a couple of things to add. Firefox has not said they're going to follow suit, and Apple has not said they're going to follow suit, although they both did in previous times when Google has done something like this before. So there's a good chance they will make the call later this year, closer to the actual date that Google is using, but they haven't done that for now, for whatever reason.
I would
One thing
recommend everyone. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna give props to, and this is unsponsored props, but props at the end of the census blog is a URL you can click and replace it with your domain name and see if your organization has certificates that may be affected by this. So it's really cool to find a blog post whenever there's actually a how can you help me navigate this at the end? So
So, question I have for the amazing census research team, and we're saying that because we're not naming the folks that were doing this for lots of reasons. Um, is this something that you're? Is this a repeatable analysis, or do you plan on having a repeat of this analysis and track it over time to see if these bars shrink or if they just stay as horrible as they are right now?
So the thing is, we can't tell um, whether a cert is like active or not. Um, it'll be interesting to see if if issuer stats change at all. But I wish I could see things kind of start to go offline, potentially. But yeah, I wonder what will happen after October.
And I did a separate thing, not with your data, but with doing some crawling on my own. And some of these folks have some really interesting time spans on their certificates, which mean because they probably did not want to bother renewing their certs. So they have some egregiously long expiry dates. So this could hurt some organizations that decided to be clever and have long expiry dates, and because they didn't want to deal with it. And that's issues all of its own on there as well too. So yeah, just something to be careful for. Watch out for yourselves, and just don't click through the error messages if you do see the error messages on whatever browser you have. We have a bunch of tags since the last time that we met with everybody. There's not a deluge of them because we are in the process of transitioning to a new sensor fleet and new detection engines and things like that. So you'll start to see a whole bunch of new stuff. I believe we have a backlog of what, like 800 tags right now, Glenn?
yeah,
Yeah.
the last half this year is gonna be wild.
Yeah, you guys are gonna love this because like we're either gonna double or triple the amount of tags we've had since last year. Like that we did last year. This year is gonna be kind of amazing.
We've already matched.
Yep. And CISA did a thing yesterday with OSGeo Geo server. I got to tell the data science community about that yesterday, so thanks for that tip off, CISA. And they got a bunch of ones since the last time that we met as well too. None of these seemed really horrible to me, unless I missed something. I wasn't. We were out and I wasn't tracking this. And I know Emily, you were out, like and Glenn and Hemija. Any of these seem horrible to you, or people should be more concerned about them than not?
We're currently looking at the geo server thing.
Okay.
I can't say how bad it is yet, but it warranted our investigation.
Cool. So that would be the end of our episode. Two plus minutes late, but that's not too bad for us. Anybody have any parting remarks from three things that have no positive upsides, really, when you think about it in the broad stroke of things? I guess maybe the CISA thing is a little positive, but still, we didn't have a lot of nice, like, with the end thing was, yeah, all orgs are going to check boxes and all orgs are going to miss something. So that was great. That was a good one in there. AT&T were
I
all
mean, the CISA
confident.
thing is a good story because CISA did the thing that found the thing.
This is
So
true. Yeah. So
we'll leave it at that.
actually, and to Emily's thing on that one, do this. Like, be like CISA. Do your red teaming. Be harsh and help people figure out how to do their security better by doing that in your org.
And it's not necessary, like, just because you find something doesn't mean that those people should be fired. There's
Do
always a
not
bigger story.
do not do that. Well, you could fire the people that did the snowflake thing, but apart from them,
Like, yeah, but we kind of highlighted, like, there's usually a bigger story or reason. So,
yeah.
sometimes we jump to conclusions for discussion points, but just be mindful.
Cool. Well, I thank you three and Ashley for re-upping the storm watch after 2 weeks being away. We did literally forget how to do this. It probably showed a little bit today, but we'll be on point next week. And we should probably talk about all the stuff that y'all are doing at the upcoming summer camp, Hacker Summer Camp. So we'll do that next week. We'll tell you all where to go, what to do, who's doing what. It's gonna be pretty cool. And well, folks, that's all the cyber carnage we have time for today on Stormwatch. Remember, in the world of cybersecurity, you're either the hacker or the hacked. And if you're neither, you're probably just boring. So keep your firewalls flaming, your passwords perplexing, and your data as dirty as AT&T's laundry. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button harder than a sister red team smashes federal defenses. Until next time, stay paranoid and keep looking over your digital shoulder, because in cyberspace, no one can hear you scream, but they can definitely steal your data. This is your favorite cyber doom prophet signing off. May your encryption be strong and your exploits be plenty. Catch you later, guys.